I was 28 when my sister decided to introduce her new boyfriend to the family. His name was Matt, the kind of guy who walked into a room like he owned it, slick back hair, expensive watch, and a grin that never quite reached his eyes. My parents adored him from the start. "He's so confident," my mom said after their first dinner. I, on the other hand, thought confident was a generous way to describe someone who bragged about his crypto investments before the appetizers even arrived. It was early spring, and my sister had planned a big family dinner at a fancy restaurant downtown, the kind where the cheapest bottle of wine costs more than my monthly utility bill. She said she wanted everyone to get to know Matt better. I wasn't exactly thrilled, but I went. I figured I'd support her. She'd been through a rough breakup the year before, and if this guy made her happy, I could put up with him for one evening. The first thing that struck me when I arrived was how overdressed everyone was. My parents were in formal wear, my sister wore a cocktail dress, and Matt looked like he'd just come from a business meeting on Wall Street. I showed up in a clean button-up and jeans, which apparently made me look like the help. "Oh, Henry," Matt said, smirking as he leaned back in his chair. "Glad you could make it, man. There's a seat for you right there." He pointed to a chair wedged awkwardly near the end of the table, right next to where the waiters were dumping dirty dishes into the bin. Everyone laughed. My sister giggled nervously, like she wasn't sure whether to defend me or join in. My mom looked mildly embarrassed, but said nothing. I just smiled, trying to keep the peace. "No problem," I said, pulling the chair back. "Perfect spot for someone who likes people watching." Matt chuckled and raised his glass. "That's the spirit, bro. You're part of the family now." He emphasized the word family, just enough to make it sound like a joke at my expense. Dinner went on, and Matt dominated every conversation. He talked about his job, some consulting gig that was never clearly defined, and how he'd just leased a new Mercedes because you can't look successful without one. He asked my dad how his retirement life was going, even though my dad still worked full-time, and he complimented my mom on her vintage taste in jewelry, which I think he meant as a compliment. Every sentence that came out of his mouth seemed polished, rehearsed, the kind of charisma that fools people who want to be impressed. But what really started to grate on me was how he treated my sister. Subtle things. He'd cut her off mid-sentence. He'd tell her to let the men handle certain topics. He once wiped a drop of sauce off her cheek and muttered, "You always make a mess, babe," in a tone that made me want to shove my chair back. At one point, my sister tried to bring me into the conversation. "Henry just got a promotion," she said proudly. Matt turned to me with that same smug grin. "Oh yeah? Doing what?" "I'm a software engineer," I said. "Moved up to a senior role a few weeks ago." He tilted his head like he was studying a particularly interesting bug under glass. "That's cute. My cousin's kid is into computers too. You should talk sometime. He's in high school, though, so maybe he could learn from you." Everyone laughed again, even my dad this time. I forced a smile, but inside, I was boiling. Halfway through the meal, the waiter brought out the wine list. Matt snatched it up before anyone else could look. "Let's celebrate properly," he said, flashing his teeth. "I've got this." He ordered 2 bottles of something I couldn't pronounce and a round of appetizers for the table. When the waiter left, my mom whispered, "Matt, that's too much," but he waved her off. "Relax," I said, "I've got it." "Your family." That word again. Family. As the night went on, I noticed a pattern. Every time Matt said family, it was followed by a glance in my direction, a half smirk, a little dig. Like he was testing me, seeing how far he could push before I broke. I stayed quiet, not wanting to ruin my sister's evening. But the more he talked, the more I could feel the tension knotting in my stomach. Then came the toast. Matt stood up, glass raised. "To family," he declared. "To people who stick together no matter what. And to the future." He gestured toward my sister and winked. Everyone clinked glasses. I raised mine too, trying not to show how hollow it all felt. Then, out of nowhere, Matt said, "And to Henry, who's lucky to be invited to the grown-ups table." Laughter again. My sister gave him a sharp look this time, but he just shrugged like it was all harmless fun. I didn't laugh. "You know," I said, keeping my voice calm, "you're awfully comfortable making jokes for someone who's still on the probation period." The table went silent. Matt's smile faltered for a split second before snapping back in place. "Hey, I'm just kidding around, man. Don't take it so personally." I forced a grin. "Of course. Just making sure we're on the same page." After that, things got awkward. My parents tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but the energy had shifted. Matt kept shooting me little glances, smirks that said he wasn't done yet. When dessert came, he leaned over to me and whispered, "Lighten up, man. You're not family yet, but maybe one day." That's when I knew this guy wasn't just arrogant. He was testing boundaries, seeing how much he could humiliate me before someone stopped him. The waiter came back with the check, a thick leather folder, discreetly placed in front of Matt. He flipped it open, and I could see his eyes flicker. The total was over $1,000, thanks to his extravagant ordering. He tried to keep his composure. Yeah, put it on my card," he said casually, handing it over. The waiter disappeared, and Matt leaned back in his chair, arms crossed like he'd just conquered a small country. Then, 30 seconds later, the waiter returned. "I'm sorry, sir. Your card was declined." The table went quiet. Matt frowned. "That's impossible. Try it again." The waiter nodded and walked away. I tried not to smirk. My sister looked mortified, whispering something to him under her breath. The waiter came back again. "I'm sorry, sir. It was declined again." Matt's face turned red. "Run it again," he snapped. The waiter hesitated. "Sir, we've tried 3 times." That's when I stood up. I looked Matt straight in the eye, every ounce of frustration from the evening bubbling to the surface. "You said I'm not family," I said, my voice steady but loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "So go ahead. Pay for your family." The color drained from his face. My sister's mouth fell open. My mom gasped quietly, and my dad stared at me like he wasn't sure whether to intervene or let it play out. The waiter just stood there, awkwardly holding the bill. Matt opened his mouth, but no words came out. And that's when I turned to the waiter and said, loud enough for everyone around us to hear, "Looks like there's been a mistake," I said, keeping my tone calm but firm. "He's not paying for me. I'm not family, remember?" The waiter blinked, unsure what to do. My sister's eyes darted between me and Matt, and my mom reached for her purse like she could smooth everything over if she just threw money at the awkwardness. But I wasn't letting that happen. Not this time. "Henry," my dad started, his voice low, warning. I didn't even look at him. "No, Dad. I've sat here all night being the joke. I've been called the kids' table, the outsider, the one who doesn't belong. Well, now I'm just returning the favor." Matt tried to chuckle, but his voice cracked. "You're really going to make a scene over a joke?" "Over a joke?" I repeated, laughing quietly. "You've been taking shots at me all night, treating my sister like a prop, and you expect me to sit here and let it slide because you think you're impressive? You wanted to play grown-up. Congratulations, now you get the grown-up bill." The waiter stood frozen, unsure who to listen to. My sister finally broke her silence. "Matt, just pay it," she whispered. "I can't," he muttered, face red. "It's probably some limit thing. I'll handle it later." The waiter cleared his throat. "Sir, I'm afraid we'll need payment tonight." I could see Matt's jaw tighten. He looked like he wanted to crawl out of his own skin. He turned to my parents. "Could one of you?" That's when I stepped in again. "You said you've got this, remember? Your words." "I've got it, because you're family." I gestured to the table. "Well, here they are. Your family." The table went dead quiet. My dad's expression hardened, not out of anger toward me, but disappointment in the situation, maybe in Matt, maybe in himself for not stepping in earlier. My mom looked mortified, whispering to my sister to just sort it out quietly. But my sister didn't move. She just sat there, shoulders shaking slightly, eyes glistening like she'd finally seen the side of Matt I'd been noticing all evening. The waiter looked around, awkwardly clutching the folder. "Should I split the bill?" he asked softly. "No," I said. He insisted he's covering it. And honestly, I'd hate to insult him by suggesting otherwise. Matt's composure cracked. "You think you're funny, don't you?" he snapped, voice rising. "You show up to dinner in jeans, freeload off your parents, and think you can talk down to me?" I leaned forward. "You're right. I'm not family, which means I don't owe you a single thing." The words hung in the air like a slap. The couple at the table next to us turned to watch. My dad muttered something under his breath, and my mom reached for her purse again. Matt noticed and barked, "Don't. I'll handle it." The waiter, clearly fed up, said quietly, "Sir, we do have to settle the bill before you leave." Matt rubbed his forehead, fumbling for his phone. "I'll do Apple Pay," he muttered. "It's probably just my card." He held up his phone, tapped it against the terminal, declined. Again. At that point, even my dad couldn't hide his frustration. "Matt," he said slowly, Maybe we should just pay and sort it out later. But I wasn't done. Dad, I said, my tone sharp, don't. You heard him. He's got it. The waiter was starting to look apologetic, like he wanted to vanish. Matt glared at me, his jaw twitching. You think this makes you look good? You're embarrassing your parents. No, I said. You did that when you started treating people like props. The air between us went still. That was when my sister quietly stood up. Everyone turned toward her. Her voice was shaky but clear. Matt, sit down. He froze. I mean it, she said. Sit down. He hesitated, then lowered himself back into the chair. She turned to me. Henry, thank you. Then she looked at the waiter. Can you give us a minute? The waiter nodded and disappeared, leaving the table heavy with tension. My sister's hands were trembling. I'm sorry, Henry, she said softly. He's been different lately. I thought maybe he was just nervous around everyone, but I didn't know he'd. Matt cut in. Oh, come on. Don't turn this into some drama. It's one dinner. Then why do you keep making everything about you? She shot back. You embarrassed my brother. You embarrassed me. He rolled his eyes. You're overreacting. No, she said firmly. I'm done pretending this is normal. For the first time that night, Matt didn't have a comeback. He just sat there, silent, fuming, trying to salvage what little dignity he had left. I didn't say another word. I just leaned back and watched him stew, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. My mom whispered something about maybe calling it a night, but no one moved. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the waiter returned. Is everything okay? Matt exhaled through his nose, reached for his wallet again, and muttered, Fine. I'll figure it out. He pulled out a different card, a black one this time, and handed it over. The waiter took it, disappeared for a moment, then came back. This one worked, he said quietly. Matt forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He signed the receipt with a stiff hand. No one said a word as we stood up to leave. My sister didn't even look at him. My parents made small talk about how the food was great, just to fill the silence. As we stepped outside into the cool night air, Matt tried to recover. Well, he said, forcing a laugh. That was something. I looked at him and smiled. Yeah, I said. A real family moment. He scowled but said nothing. And that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because the next morning, I got a call from my mom saying Matt had accused me of setting him up, that I'd purposely embarrassed him in front of everyone, and that my sister was blowing things out of proportion. What he didn't realize was that this time, my sister wasn't defending him anymore. In fact, she'd found something that would make everything that happened at that dinner look like child's play. And when I found out what it was, I realized the dinner humiliation was just the beginning. When my mom called me the next morning, her tone was cautious, that overly calm kind of voice parents use when they're trying to prevent an explosion. Henry, she said, Matt called. He said there was a misunderstanding last night. I almost laughed. A misunderstanding? That's what he's calling it. She sighed. He feels like you were trying to humiliate him. He said you knew his card wouldn't work and that you. I cut her off. Knew? How would I possibly know that? I didn't even know he had more than one card until he whipped out that black one like a magician doing his last trick. Henry, please, she said gently. I'm not defending him. Your sister's upset too. She's not talking to anyone right now. That got my attention. Not talking? To him or to us? Both, my mom said, hesitating. She said she needs time to think. I think she's realizing things. I hung up with a pit in my stomach. Part of me wanted to drive over to her place and make sure she was okay. The other part knew she probably needed space. Still, something about it didn't sit right with me. The way Matt had gone from smug to desperate overnight. The way my sister had suddenly gone quiet. By that evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted her. Me? Hey, you okay? Her, yeah? Can we talk soon? Me? Of course. Her? Come by tomorrow. But don't tell mom and dad yet. That message had weight. My sister was the type to overshare everything with our parents. If she was telling me not to, something serious was up. The next day, I drove to her apartment, and as soon as she opened the door, I knew something had shifted. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that comes from lack of sleep, but the kind that comes from realizing someone you trust isn't who you thought they were. Thanks for coming, she said softly. She led me into the kitchen where her laptop was open on the counter. On the screen was an email chain. Remember how Matt said he works in consulting? She asked. Yeah, I said slowly. He never actually explained what that meant. She gave a bitter laugh. That's because there is no job. I found out he's been telling everyone he's a business consultant, but really, he's unemployed. He's been using his old company's name on LinkedIn like he still works there. They fired him last year. I blinked. Wait, what? She clicked through a few tabs, showing me messages between Matt and his so-called clients. They weren't clients at all. They were emails begging for money, thinly disguised as investment opportunities. I felt my stomach twist. He's scamming people? Trying to, she said. And get this, he's been using my name for credibility, saying I'm helping him manage accounts. I found it in his sent emails. I just stared at her. You've got to be kidding me. She shook her head, tears welling up. No, Henry, I'm not. He's been lying about everything. The watch, the car lease, even his apartment, it's in his cousin's name. And last night, that dinner? He was trying to impress everyone so he could pitch some business idea to Dad later this week. That's why he ordered so much. He thought he could show off. My jaw tightened. So when his card declined, yeah, she said, he had no money left. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it all settling in. I could hear the hum of her fridge, the faint ticking of the clock. She rubbed her eyes and whispered, I feel so stupid. You're not, I said quickly. He's good at manipulation. He fooled everyone, even Mom and Dad. She sniffled. He said he loved me, Henry. And I believed him. I didn't know what to say. Seeing her like that, the same sister who used to boss me around when we were kids, who always had everything together, now sitting there looking broken, it hit me hard. What are you going to do? I asked finally. She looked up at me, something steely forming in her eyes. I'm done with him. But I'm not just walking away quietly. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She turned the laptop toward me again. On the screen was a document, a spreadsheet filled with names, dates, and payment amounts. These are all the people he scammed, she said. I found them in his files. I think he's been pretending to be a financial advisor, taking people's deposits, and then ghosting them. I leaned closer. You could report this. I will, she said. But I want him to know it first. I want him to see everything fall apart before I do it. That's when I realized where she got that fire. She was my sister, after all. She looked at me, her expression hardening. I need your help, Henry. Anything, I said. She smirked faintly. I'm going to invite him over tomorrow. I want you to be here. He doesn't know I found out yet. I want him to think I'm giving him a chance to explain. And then, she said, I'm going to show him exactly how much I know. I nodded slowly. You're sure about this? She exhaled. I don't want to ruin his life. I just want him to stop ruining mine. But if he tries to lie his way out of it again, then yeah, maybe I'll ruin it a little. There was a quiet determination in her voice that reminded me of the old her, the one who never let anyone walk over her, who once stood up to a teacher for trying to take credit for her project in high school. That version of her was resurfacing, and I could see she meant every word. The next evening, I showed up at her place 10 minutes before Matt was supposed to arrive. She looked calm, too calm, sitting at the kitchen table with 2 glasses of wine poured. The spreadsheet was open on her laptop, but she'd minimized it. Just let me talk first, she said when I walked in. If he denies it, then you step in. I nodded. Got it. At 7:04, there was a knock on the door. She took a deep breath and opened it. Matt walked in, wearing the same smirk from the dinner. Hey, babe, he said, leaning in to kiss her, but she stepped back. We need to talk, she said. He froze, eyes flicking to me. Oh, he's here too. Yeah, she said. He's here. He tried to play it off, smiling weakly. Okay, what's this about? She motioned toward the table. Sit down. He hesitated, then did. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with the kind of tension that could break glass. My sister looked him dead in the eye. Tell me what you do for work, Matt. He blinked. What do you mean? You know what I do. Tell me anyway, she said softly. He shifted uncomfortably. I told you. Consulting. Financial advice. Helping clients manage investments. She tilted her head. Clients like these? She opened the laptop and spun it toward him. The spreadsheet glowed in the dim light. Matt froze, his smirk vanishing for the first time since I'd known him. What is this? He said, his voice shaky. You tell me, she said. Because if I send this to the police, I think they'll have a few questions too. He stared at her, then at me. His jaw tightened. You went through my stuff? You used my name in your scams, she shot back. So yeah, I did. The room went silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Matt's face shifted from shock to anger to panic in seconds. Then, Slowly, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You have no idea what you're doing." My sister smiled, not kindly. "Oh, I think I do." And the next words out of her mouth were the ones that made Matt's entire facade crumble. And for the first time, I saw fear flicker behind that smug grin. Matt's smirk flickered, faltered, then fell away entirely. He stared at my sister like he'd just realized the ground beneath him was cracking. "You think you can blackmail me?" he said finally, his voice trembling just enough to betray the panic he was trying to hide. My sister leaned back, calm and composed. "No, Matt. I'm not blackmailing you. I'm giving you a chance to come clean. To tell me the truth before I do what I already should have done." He scoffed, forcing a laugh. "This is ridiculous. You don't even understand what you're looking at. Those aren't real clients. It's just some draft work. Planning documents, okay? You're blowing things out of proportion." She didn't even blink. "Oh, really? Because one of those drafts belongs to my coworker's cousin. The one who said she sent $5,000 to your PayPal for an investment portfolio. Want to guess how I found that out? She posted on Facebook about losing her money to a fake consultant with your email address." That landed like a hammer. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His throat bobbed as he tried to find words. Okay, that was a misunderstanding. She wanted quick returns, and when she didn't get them, she... Stop. My sister's voice cut through the air like glass. "Stop lying." Matt froze. She closed the laptop, folding her hands neatly on top of it. "You lied to me about your job. You lied to Mom and Dad. You used my name. You took money from people. And you embarrassed my brother, the only person who saw through you from day one." He looked at me, eyes narrowing. "So this was your idea, huh? You've always hated me." I shrugged. "Not hate. Just didn't buy the sales pitch." He pushed back his chair abruptly, standing up. "You don't know what you're doing, either of you. If you report me, you're going down too. Your name's on some of those transactions, sweetheart. You'll be dragged into this mess." My sister's face stayed calm, but I saw her hand tremble slightly. That was his move, intimidation. He'd used it all night at that restaurant, and now he was trying to do it again. Except this time, she was ready. "That's where you're wrong," she said quietly. She turned her laptop back around and hit play on a voice memo. Matt's voice filled the kitchen. "Babe, don't worry about the accounts. I'm using your name for now, but I'll move everything later. It's cleaner this way." His face drained of color. "I recorded that last week," she said, her voice shaking with controlled anger. "Because I had a feeling something wasn't right." He stared at her, his jaw twitching. You set me up." "No," she said coldly. "You set yourself up. I just stopped pretending not to notice." He stood there, breathing heavily, looking around like a cornered animal. "You can't prove anything else. Nobody's going to believe you." I finally spoke. "Then maybe they'll believe me." He turned sharply. "Stay out of this, Henry." I took a step closer. "See, that's where you keep making mistakes. You think you can bully your way out of everything. You did it at dinner, you did it with my sister, and now you're trying it again. But this time, the waiter's not here to save you." Matt's expression twisted. "You think you're some kind of hero?" I didn't answer. My sister did. "No," she said. "He's family." That hit harder than anything I could have said. She stood up slowly, laptop in hand. "You have two options, Matt. One, you leave right now, and I contact every person on this list to warn them. Then I go to the police with your files. Or two, you keep talking, and I start with my lawyer." He looked at her for a long, tense moment. His jaw clenched, his breathing uneven. Then, without another word, he grabbed his jacket and stormed toward the door. He stopped only once, turning back with that same bitter sneer. "You'll regret this." My sister didn't flinch. "I already did," she said. The door slammed behind him. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence was heavy but clean, like the air after a thunderstorm. Finally, she let out a shaky laugh. "I can't believe that just happened." I smiled faintly. "You handled it perfectly." She sank into her chair, covering her face with her hands. "I feel free. Angry, but free." We spent the next few hours filing reports, saving emails, forwarding everything to an attorney friend of mine who specialized in fraud cases. By the time we were done, the weight that had been pressing on both of us for weeks finally felt like it was lifting. The fallout came fast. Within days, my sister's lawyer sent a cease and desist notice, and the victims she contacted started coming forward with their own complaints. Turns out Matt had scammed at least 7 people, small amounts, a few thousand here and there. but enough to get him investigated. He tried to reach out to my sister, texts, emails, even voicemails begging her to just talk, but she blocked him everywhere. When word got around that the police had questions for him, he vanished, moved out of his apartment, shut down his socials, disappeared completely. A month later, one of his clients messaged my sister thanking her for coming forward. Apparently, the man had been too embarrassed to report it before. That message made her cry. A few weeks after that, our family had dinner again. Same restaurant, same table. This time, there was no tension, no smirks, no fake toasts. Just laughter. As we finished our meal, the waiter brought the bill, smiling. "Who's paying tonight?" My sister glanced at me, then grinned. "My brother's got it." I laughed. "Yeah," I said, slipping my card onto the tray. "For my family." The waiter nodded and walked away. As we sat there, my sister leaned over and whispered, "You know, I should have listened to you sooner." I shook my head. "No, you needed to see it for yourself. Now you know your worth." She smiled softly. "And now I know who really has my back." We clinked our glasses, and for the first time in a long while, everything felt right again. No smug outsiders. No manipulation. Just peace. When the waiter returned, he handed me my card and said, "All set, sir." I nodded, catching my reflection in the window. Calm, content, grounded. The kind of man who doesn't need to prove anything. As we left, my sister slipped her arm through mine. "You know," she said, half smiling, "when he said you weren't family. I think that's when I realized how wrong he was." I grinned. "Yeah, because family doesn't laugh when you're put by the trash." She laughed, that real, unguarded laugh I hadn't heard in months. And as we stepped into the cool night air, leaving the clatter of dishes and quiet music behind us, I thought about how one dinner, one ugly scene, had shown us both the truth. Sometimes, you don't really see who people are until the bill comes due. And this time, he finally paid for it, just not the way he expected.